Hi, welcome to Fiber Hustle. My name is Chip, and this is the Side Hustle Quilting Edition. Yesterday we started out with Block 1, Lines 1 of the Trinket Sew-along from Alison Glass. Yesterday we took a higher level look at what the project entails, and today we're going to take a deeper dive into the project. So let's get started with Block 2, Lines 2. Grab your favorite beverage. Welcome back. Now we're ready to take that deeper dive into the project. The first thing I think we should talk about is the pattern itself. Personally, I never ever cut into my original patterns. I always make a copy. That way someday in the future I can make it again and I don't have to rebuy the pattern. I save them in Ziploc bags and I have a nice storage system. So when you get your pattern, you see that you get all the different pages. And what are you going to print them on? Well, you could either use regular copy paper, which many people do, or I like to use newspaper print because it's much thinner. It's also easier for the needle to strike in and out. You do want to lower your stitch down to 2.0, around that would work. But when you actually go to remove the paper from the fabric, it's just like that. It's really easy. So, my suggestion, get newspaper print. Now, fast forward, you've got your pattern printed out and you're ready to start working with it. There's a couple of things that you should know about the pattern itself. You've got your sew lines, which are these interior lines, and then you also have cut lines. The outer line right here is where you should cut. That way you still allow yourself a 1/4 inch seam allowance for when you're actually putting the pieces together. So make sure that you don't cut to the interior line. You're going to need that for later. I realized one of the issues that I was having when it wasn't cutting right, it wasn't that it was just an old blade, but your rotary cutters, they could also get clogged up with fabric. Okay, now that I've got my blade ready, now it's time to pick out the fabric. I have been eyeing this blue fabric. It's a really beautiful, thicker cotton, and it's by Alison Glass. It's part of the diving board collection, and the print itself, it really doesn't say anything. It's just a jumble of words, but it really looks good on your projects. I'm going to cut off a piece, and let's see how much I need. So I need about that much. All right, so I'm just going to slice, new blade, and slice. Great. First piece picked. And we don't need this fabric, but we do need another fabric to go with it. And I am eyeing, I know. I'm going to pick a nice orangey color. Reminds me of the Florida Gators. Okay, so we're going to pick up this piece and have plenty of it. The orange itself is just going to be an accent, so I really don't need that much. All right, so just like we did on block 1, we should go ahead and give our fabric a quick press. I was thinking about Patrick Swayze today. When you're sitting at your sewing machine in the movie Ghost, he was sitting behind Demi Moore, and they were at the pottery wheel. Well, this is my pottery wheel, so I'm wondering who would be behind me. Terry Crews? Who would be at yours? Don't tell Aaron I said that. Okay, so now we've got our 2 pieces cut. We're going to go to the light box, and we want to work on, there's a little piece of fabric there. Okay, so we want to work on matching block 1 to block 2. And I know it's confusing because I'm calling it a block, but maybe I should say piece 1 to piece 2. I'm using the orange as piece 1, and I know that we want to fold this way, so I'm going to leave a little bit of hanging over this line right here. That way there's overage, and you can still see that line. Then we're going to lay this blue fabric face down right on top of it, because that's going to be the outer fabric. We want it to go face down because we're going to flip it over. Now, one thing that I didn't do is put the pattern face down, because we're actually going to be sewing on that line and we need to see it really well. So, same thing as before. Orange goes over 1 with some overhang. Blue goes over orange with some overhang. Pinch, and then we're going to go to the sewing machine. Now, you may notice that your fabric wants to shift while you're transporting it. It'll happen, and just make sure that everything's where you were hoping it would be. I'm going to start off with a locking stitch, which I've got it going. So, 1 locking stitch coming up. There we go. Now, slow and steady. We want to make sure that we're sewing right on the right line. And let the fabric get moved by the machine. You're just guiding it and aiming along that line. Okay, so I've stitched my line. I'm going to do another locking stitch, and then I can cut my thread. Now, over and over and over, we're going to work on this process through the life of this project. You want to put your fabric down, you want to sew, you want to bring the fabric up and iron. You want to make sure that it's all pressed, and you want to make sure that you're not pulling the fabric or pushing it out of shape, especially if you're working with scraps, because scraps, if they're on the bias, on the diagonal, they can actually stretch really easy, and that's where you can go wrong. That looks pretty good. We're going to have our piece 1, piece 2, and now you've sewn, you've ironed, and now it's time to trim. So we've flipped this over. Okay, and then we're going to actually fold on this line between 3 and 1. Okay, oops, my line's a little off. I'll do it this way. You want to make sure that you're following line 1. Cool. So I did it that way so I could actually see where I need to fold. Now that I have a fold line, I'm going to bend it back, and that is where I want to trim the orange fabric. Looks good to me. No, it doesn't. Oh. Right there. Okay. All right. So I'm ready to trim, and we're only going to trim 1/4 of an inch. And that's what this ruler does. It actually has that ledge so that where you seamed, that's where it goes. So it's caught right now on that, and take it to the cutting mat. We don't want to cut on the light, and trim. Now we're left with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Yeah, that looks really good. So now we're going to have to match piece 3 to piece 1 and 2. So what I'm going to do is come back over, and we want to make sure that we're not cutting too much. So we can actually cut all of this because we're really not going to use all of that. So I am going to give myself some extra and give this a trim. All right, so now we're going to sew piece 1 and 2, piece 1 and 2 to the third one. This time we're going to fold, we're going to have the overhang here, and then we're going to sew right on this line. So I want to make sure that I have that lined up. Come back to the sewing machine and make sure that nothing shifted, which I think we're looking good. Great. Now we're going to give it a locking stitch. Okay, and we are on our way again. We're going to just sew right on that line, and yes, I scared myself. I thought I sewed it upside down. Great. So we've got our second stitch. We're going to lock that stitch. We're going to cut our thread. And then, voila, we've got our next seam. We're going to press again. And then we are following the rules. You want to sew, you want to press, and if you're not adding another piece of fabric, then it's time to trim. So you see, we've got our almost finished block ready to go. Now we can come back to these trim lines, and again, it's the outer line, not the inner line. Our Sharpie Sharp blade cuts through like butter. Love it. It's one. Two cuts. Oop, went off a little bit. 3. And we are on our way. We just did 4, and we have a completed block. This one goes this way. Yeah. So there you have it. Block number 2, lines number 2. I can't wait to get to number 3. I hope you'll come back and join me. Bye for now.